Okay, so I wanted to do an actual mini review for once, which I rarely do for the novels I read, although I typically average between 120 and 140 novels every year, but I want to be better at doing mini reviews for novels in the new year of 2026. So, what I read, this was my first novel of 2026. What I read was Never Ever After by Su Lin Tan. I was able to borrow it through Libby from my library. If I'm not mistaken, this released at the end of October of 2025. And this is a new fantasy series by her. And if you're familiar with the author, she also wrote the Daughter of the Moon Goddess Celestial Kingdom duology, and I love her work. So I was very excited for Never Ever After. In Never Ever After, we meet Yining, a 19-year-old. This is a YA, but I would say that it is a older YA because none of the characters we meet are said to be younger than her. So Yining is 19. She is an impoverished girl from a small village in the kingdom of the Iron Mountains. And she works alongside her evil step aunt, telling fortunes and basically swindling people. But one fine day, while working in the market with her step aunt, who forces her to tell the fortunes, she happens upon a young man named Jin, and she tells his fortune. He overpays her, and when her aunt is caught stealing someone's jewelry, she tries to blame Yining, and Yining ends up having to flee for her life. And so Jin helps her escape, and then when she gets home, eventually, her step aunt is unfazed by what happens. Yining discovers that there is an invitation to a ball at the palace of the Nine Hills for the prince who is soon to be the king and ruler of the Iron Mountains Kingdom. Yining is very excited at the possibility of going. Of course, it being a bit Cinderella-esque, the step-aunt says she can't go. Yining has always felt a bit out of place in the kingdom. She was adopted by her aunt and uncle because she was found one day. She has no memories of her past. And so her aunt passes away first, and then her uncle, and she ends up with her evil step aunt, whom he married before he passed away. And so she is forbidden to go to the palace, but one day as she's returning home, she happens upon a pond with a magical carp. And the magical carp tells her that she must accept part of a ring that she holds the base to, and it is part of her destiny. At first, Yining is like, "You're crazy, you're a magical talking carp, why should I believe you?" But when she realizes his magic is real, she wants to run away from her aunt and try to discover where her destiny is. But unfortunately, one day her aunt discovers the magical carp and follows Yining, kills the poor carp, and steals Yining's ring, which the carp had warned her that now that she had accepted it, she would die without it. And so, in a desperate attempt to get her ring back from her step aunt, Yining follows her greedy aunt to the ball at the palace where, her aunt is just stealing up a storm galore, just taking everyone's jewelry and whatnot. And she is accused by her step aunt of her step aunt's thievery so that she can run away. And she is able to convince the prince that it wasn't her, but under the guise of investigation, the prince does take her ring and refuses to give it back to her. Supposedly, Yining catches his fancy, and at first, Yining is like, this is cool, I'm gonna be a princess and this is a dashing prince, but she soon sees through the veneer of his princeliness that he's cruel and cunning and treats her like a toy, and one thing that Yining values above all else is her freedom. And so she soon discovers that Jin was just no random rich boy that she ran into at the market while telling fortunes, that he was actually the advisor of the neighboring kingdom with which they have a tentative alliance of Thorn Valley. And he says, if you want to get away from this terrible prince, then I can help you if you agree to be the champion in the tournament representing my kingdom. So she uses a disguise to enter the tournament as the champion of the kingdom of Thorn Valley, because the prize is something that she doesn't quite understand the value of, but it is known as Starfire. And so she wins the tournament, and so she and Jin and his companions go to save the daughter of a duke who was being kept in a tower by a magic wielder. And so when they go to save her, they realize that the daughter of the duke wasn't being held hostage. She wanted to be with this magic wielder because the two young ladies fell in love. And through twists of fate, Yining discovers that this magic wielder who allegedly had kept the duke's daughter hostage is actually her sister, because Yining was yanked from her home of the magic wielders, Mist Island, and Jin is beyond the advisor. He is actually the heir to the kingdom of Thorn Valley. And so everyone plots to get Yining her ring back and get her home safely to Mist Isle, the valley or the kingdom of the magic wielders. But the cruel prince of the Iron Mountains is actually imprisoning the Sun Dragon, which is one of the gods of Mist Isle, so they must save the poor little dragon as well. But things aren't over for Yining and Jin. Her sister tells her to be wary of him, but the book ends with her just crossing over into her homeland of Mist Island. So I know that this is going to be at least a duology. What I loved about this book was the world building, and one of the reasons why I read YA is because I don't like intimacy scenes to be what are now these days called very spicy. Like, I appreciate fade to black. Like, I don't mind kissing and things of that nature, but I don't like things to be super, super explicit. So that's why I tend to gravitate towards YA, even though these days even YA can have some quote-unquote spicy scenes. that personally I don't feel would be appropriate for younger teen readers. But so even though the romances were lush and romantic, and there's a few intense kissing scenes, nothing gets too crazy, which is something I appreciated. And also, like I said, the lush world building was excellent. I did notice, which I don't remember noticing in other works of Sulin Tan's, but she used the words roiling a lot regarding like Yining being super nervous, and it was just one of those words that kept repeating so much during the manuscript that it, like, anytime the word roiling came up, I was like, "Ah, here goes her stomach again, or here goes her nerves again." I really enjoyed Yining as a character because one thing she's gonna do is protect herself and save herself. The romance goes between Yining and Jin, and Yining and the Prince of the Iron Mountains, although it's pretty obvious to me that she prefers Jin, but at one point early on in the story, she thought she was falling into a fairy tale, and so she did really like the Prince of the Iron Mountains at one point before she realized that because the Iron Mountains invaded her homeland, it is more or less the reason why her mother was imprisoned and passed away, and the reason why she grew up away from her homeland. And so there's still going to be a lot to unpack in whatever second book might come along, and possibly even a third. But based on Sulin Tan's other works, I would likely guess that this will be another duology. I don't know how I'm going to wait for the second book, because I know it's going to be about a year of wait, if not longer. But this was great. And if you love Sulin Tan's other works, or works by authors such as Amelie Wen Zhao, which The Scorpion and the Night Blossom and Never Ever After gave me some similar vibes. If you enjoy works by those by Emily Wen Zhao, or even Zaba Tahir and Renee Adia, you will enjoy Never Ever After. I will say the one tiny little gripe I had was that the words roiling at one point regarding her stomach again were used, I feel like, every 5 pages at one point. I might be exaggerating a little, but I don't know if it comes from my time of having worked in publishing, but when you see certain turns of phrases turn up a lot in a manuscript, you start to notice it very easily. And so, and also, I feel like, can we have a nice fantasy without a potential love triangle? Even though she does seem to favor Jin, without a doubt, like, she can't absolutely deny any feelings for the Prince of the Iron Mountain. And so it would be nice to have a fantasy romance that doesn't thrive or necessarily revolve around a love triangle. I can't wait for the next book where we see how Yining adapts to her original kingdom, and what's really in store for her and Jin, and the 3 kingdoms, whether it be the Iron Mountain, Thorn Valley, of which Jin is the heir, or Yining and her sister Dian, and their kingdom of magic wielders, the Mist Island. So if you've been thinking about reading this one, please consider it.